And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting outside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If there's methane, it'd be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening, everybody. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready to launch more of your favorite Starlink satellites on the 6-75 mission. And as always, this is not your ordinary Starlink, but before we get to that, I of course need to get to the amazing people that will be joining me on this stream tonight, including Mr. Max Evans. Max, it's good time hearing your voice for the first time today. Haven't been hearing you at all, right?
Yeah, not at all. And certainly not last night and the night before. But good evening, everybody, and welcome back, because we have a Falcon 9 hopefully getting airborne here in just under 1 hour's time.
Well, it is going to be exciting. Of course, we're still watching everything going on at Starbase 2. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of Frosty vehicles here tonight. That's what we would like. And also a lot of engines igniting tonight. But joining us as well from the field for tonight's stream is the always awesome D-Wise. D, how is it going?
It is going really well. It is a great night when you have a rocket on the pad vertical. And so it is a great night tonight.
There we go. You could see now our Cape team with our little behind-the-scenes camera that D has set up there as well, out on the lawn with the rocket behind them. So there is the view for our crew. And of course, bringing the views to you tonight is Carson behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and making all of that happen. So thank you, Carson Phillips, for that. A reminder, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can on this stream. So let's start things off here. Max, can you kind of give us a rundown of tonight's mission? How many satellites and what booster we've got going tonight?
So we are once again picking back up with the cadence for the Group 6 shell of the Starlink V2 mini satellites. So we are back to 28. Count them. Well, actually, don't count them. It'll take too long. But 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites aboard Falcon 9 tonight, and that is unique because that ties the record for the most amount of V2 minis on a Falcon 9 to this point. And that is not a light payload. This is different from the Group 12 shells that have been launching as well, because those tend to be a mix of the V2 minis and then also the direct-to-cell satellites as well. But the Group 6s tend to stick with just the V2 minis. Falcon 9 will be lifting off and heading downrange tonight on a 43-degree inclination southeast, and will be launching just north of the Bahamas. So that's essentially what is going to be flying tonight. And the booster is B1080, and this will be its 18th mission to this point. Its flight history includes that of AX-2, the Euclid telescope, AX-3, CRS-30, SES Astro 1P, NG-21, and 11 previous Starlink missions as well. So 18 flights is certainly nothing to snuff at, and it is nearing that the ever so common threshold nowadays of 20 flights, and they have an impressive amount of boosters at or near that milestone now, which is remarkable. Following a hopefully nominal ascent, the first stage booster will be meeting the drone ship. Just read the instructions about 8.5 minutes into flight for a landing and recovery back here in Port Canaveral. And just a bit farther downrange than that is the fairing recovery ship Bob, ready to pluck those fairings out of the Atlantic Ocean. Both are stationed over 600 kilometers southeast of the Florida Peninsula. So while we say this never gets old, this really is just business as usual for SpaceX, at least here on the Space Coast.
Yeah, the speed has been picking up quite a lot, actually. I mean, think of just how many launches we've already had in the last 5 or 6 days, and add in the fact there's another one scheduled for Sunday as well. It is
Yep.
quite a busy time, to say the least, and that's not counting all the other ones from Vandenberg, too. So for the trajectory, as Max was pointing out, this is what it will look like on the map of where we're expecting to see this land. That giant red splotch in the bottom right by the Bahamas, that is where we should see both the landing of the booster on the drone ship as well as the fairing recovery, roughly about 100 kilometers away from each other on that point. Now, it looks like a beautiful night tonight, but D, how is the weather looking for tonight?
You know, the weather in terms of rocket launches is about as good as it can get. The 45th Weather Squadron, of course, publishes launch mission execution forecasts where they're looking at the weather and noting any concerns. And here, under primary concerns, we have none. And a probability of violating the weather constraints for a launch tonight is at less than 5%, which is just about as good as it can get. Now, I will say, just looking up at the sky, there are some very thin high-level clouds, but notably that is not of concern here. That's not noted as one of their concerns for a liftoff today. And they also aren't tracking any of their additional risk criteria, whether that's the upper-level wind shear, booster recovery weather out with the drone ship, or solar activity. So it is truly just a wonderful, wonderful night to have a launch.
I mean, every night's a good night for a launch, but some days are better than others, and in this case, that is what we see weather-wise. Yes, the 45th Weather Squadron, I think maybe once or twice in all the years I've been covering spaceflight have I ever seen a 0% probability of violation. So 95 is about as good as you will ever see them do, so that's what we like to see for tonight. And as you're pointing out, the issue, of course, with the clouds is typically the cumulus cloud rule or anvil clouds, basically clouds that either could contain lightning or, if the vehicle passes through it, could generate its own lightning and strike the vehicle. Those thin, wispy ones that you see up there are not an issue in that regard. So, while we continue to watch everything here over at the Cape, I do see people already asking now about Starbase. OC33 saying it looks like they may be trying again to fire up Ship 35. What do y'all think? Max, what are we seeing down at Starbase here?
I mean, it looks like the lock side of the tank farm over at Massey's is starting to wake back up again, which obviously is a major indicator that they are on for more activity tonight. Hopefully a 6-engine static fire. As far as we are aware, the road to Massey's is still closed and has not reopened since it closed just a few hours ago when they loaded propellant into Ship 35 before. They since obviously depressed and detanked and saved the vehicle for a handful of cars to roll in and do whatever they needed to do. And I believe they have since been cleared. Otherwise, they would not be spinning up the tank farm as they are now. So we may be getting some Falcon and Starship activity tonight.
A double header potential. You gotta love it. Especially if they actually go, considering the way the last 2 nights have been with the first attempt that didn't happen, and then, as we saw yesterday, you and I, Max, were on for the single-engine static fire that they did.
Indeed.
Hopefully we get more engines tonight. Let's see here what else we have question-wise. This one is not landing back on the Cape then, Max. We haven't really seen anything about any of the RTLS missions with Starlink. I know they had discussed it and there have been talks about it, but we haven't really seen it, have we?
No, there really haven't, and you would need to fly under very specific circumstances for that to be even possible. Because typically, the Starlink missions out of Florida tend to be on the heavier side, which requires more propellant and more performance to be used on Falcon 9, which leaves less in the reserves to bring it back home. That is why SpaceX tends to send the boosters way out into the ocean for a drone ship recovery, because that requires less fuel and less performance. So unless they went super light, like maybe 10 to 15 satellites for whatever reason, without any direct cells on it. Maybe they could turn that booster, turn that booster around and bring her back home. But they need every bit of performance they can from the Falcon 9 first stage and the upper stage. So an RTLS Starlink mission in the future doesn't necessarily seem plausible, at least in the near future. Could it happen down the line? I'm not saying it can't. SpaceX can launch however many Starlinks at once as they please. But at the moment, it does not seem feasible, at least under these conditions.
Yeah, as nice as it would be to see, it might help with the cadence in the future. It could be something that they do if they go even more than 150-ish launches a year, which is crazy to say that they're on track for at this point right now. They might consider that, but the whole point is to get as many Starlink payloads up as possible. And as you pointed out, they're actually surprisingly heavy, all things considered. But it does seem like we may soon see a Falcon 9 launch with 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites. The current record for the most is tied with the mission that you see right now at 28, which tends to be the case with these Group 6 launches since none of them have that direct-to-cell extension on them. That would be quite a lot of satellites and quite impressive to say the least, but for now, it's more for those lighter single launch payloads. They're able to do it for all of the Dragon missions typically as well. So, unfortunately, not as many RTLSs as we would love to see. All right. Here's a good question. Owen is asking, what is the TTEB and how does it cause Merlin to ignite?
So TTEB is an acronym that stands for triethyl aluminum triethyl borine, and that is that green flash that we see at the bottom of Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy before each time they light the Merlin engines, either at launch or for engine reignition for entry and landing burns. And so it is a pyrophoric substance, which means it ignites on contact with the oxygen rich atmosphere that we have here on the surface of Earth. And they essentially send that through the turbopumps of the Merlins, and that spools them up, which then allows them to introduce the LOX and kerosene, or RP1 as it's more commonly called, into the engine for a full and healthy start. So whenever we say towards T0, look out for that green flash, that's TTEB.
And here's the most important question that someone asked along with that. Matrix asking, can we get a TTEB tea towel in the NSF store? I think that's a brilliant play on words. I love that. Even though I don't drink tea or use a tea towel, I would totally get a TTEB tea towel.
I mean, we already have tea bags, but we don't. That's not as popular in the US as it is in the UK. Maybe that's just a generic stereotype, but you know.
Yeah, and we have a beach towel. Of course, I still lie there, which is one of my other favorite word plays that we have in the shop. But yeah, we that would be a cool idea. I'll pitch that to Adrian and Lindsay over at the store and see what they think. I mean, one of my other favorite puns, of course, is the Four Towers merch that we have. And I did see a question from John Cook asking, are there lightning towers over at Massey's? I don't recall them seeing any. That seems to be very much a Cape thing, in particular, a Florida thing, especially given that Florida is considered the lightning capital of the world, right?
It sure is, and while we have seen storms roll through Starbase on occasion, it is certainly not like it is here in Florida, where in the summer months we will get storms and at least rain literally every single afternoon between 3 and 5 p.m., sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but that is typically how the weather patterns behave here in Florida. The weather in South Texas, like right on the Gulf, behaves a little bit differently. They are in a more desert-like area, so there isn't a ton of rain they see year-round. Usually, on average, I mean, they obviously can go through bigger storms and, of course, hurricanes, which they are vulnerable to, being right on the Gulf. But typically, we don't see big lightning-centric or lightning-heavy storms in Starbase, so it does not seem to be that big of a concern. At least over at Massey's.
I was going to say, yeah, we tend to see it a lot, at least more of the Cape side. It would be kind of cool to see a giant lightning rod with the catenary wires going down from the launch tower over at pads A and B down there, but there's not really a need for it. Although we do have the beautiful ones here at the Cape, including the 4 surrounding pad 40, which you see on the right side of your screen, compared to Massey's, where you see ship 35 on the left side of your screen. And it very much looks like that tank farm is spooling up a bunch now. Now, knowing our luck at this point, our T-Zeros will converge and we will have a Falcon launch and a Starship static fire at the same time, which I would not be surprised at this point. Our luck.
These are good
90
problems to have, Sawyer. These are good problems to have.
Very true, and that's why something like this, split screen, exists. 98 Central is asking, does NASA fly the WB-57 for Starlink missions? We rarely see the WB-57 out at the Cape for any launches recently, have we, Max? I can't remember the last one besides Artemis.
Yeah, not anymore. Usually they are reserved for larger missions or more unique missions, like Falcon Heavy, or if there's a bespoke Vulcan flight going, or even New Glenn. We don't know, but we don't see it here very often. But whenever it is in town, it's around something larger or something special.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully another launch again. We'll see it. Well, Artemis 2, I would assume it would be back out. Maybe we get to see it for the first Starship launch out of Florida, whichever happens first. So
I really hope Artemis 2 flies in daytime. Please, oh Lord, please.
I think everyone is on the same page that we want to see the next SLS flight in the daytime, because Artemis 1 being in the dead of night was a little bit disappointing.
It was beautiful, but I think that scratched our night launch itch for a long time, and I think seeing that big orange fly in proper daylight would be a much appreciated change of pace.
for those who remember, the first 2 attempts of Artemis were daytime launch attempts. They started things up at stupid o'clock in the morning, and they were going for, I believe it was 10 or 11 a.m. for the first couple ones, and then it got delayed by months. They had to roll it back. There was a hurricane. There was Engine 3, which we love that engine still. All of that they had to work on. They rolled it back out, and then it ended up launching at night because of how far it moved.
But also, hey, you give E3 a bunch of crap, but remember, it wasn't actually the engine. It was just a pesky little sensor on the engine. Remember?
That is true. Yes, you are right.
But technically was part of E3, so I guess E3.
You also had the ground umbilical carrier plate. Oh, it hurts to say it. Come back and cause issues. You had then the timing on the flight termination system and all. It was a lot that went into having it end up moving. So hopefully we get a day launch for that. And hopefully in 40 minutes, we get a night launch here of Falcon 9. And we should be seeing some activity picking up on our timeline, right?
We are indeed. So we are coming up at actually right about now. The SpaceX launch director and the team involved should be polling if the vehicle and ground support equipment are go for propellant load. Assuming they are, they will grant that poll go at T-minus 38 minutes, which will grant prop load to begin on Falcon 9's first stage at T-minus 35 minutes. They will also begin loading RP-1 into stage 2 at that time as well. In around T-minus 33 minutes, we should get visual indicators, primarily on the bottom of the LOX tank in the form of frost, which will confirm that we are in the middle of propellant loading. So it'll take a few minutes, but it is awfully sticky out here in Florida tonight, so we should not have much difficulty there. Following that, we have the much beloved and very famous, obviously, the T-minus 20-minute and 20-second vent, which means SpaceX has concluded loading RP-1 into stage 2, and they are conditioning the line thermally to load and flow liquid oxygen through the transporter erector and into stage 2. Once that vent completes at T-minus 16 minutes, that is when they will load or begin loading LOX into stage 2. And that is, we should get into anything else after that as we get closer to T0 and engine chill at T-minus 7 minutes. But we have a long way to go until then, but the time between now and then should pass rather quickly. Hopefully. I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully.
Well, again, we were talking about that the other night. That's usually the case with these launches where it's like, oh, it's 40 minutes, and then you blink your eyes, and all of a sudden you're 2 minutes from launch. It
Yeah,
feels
no
like it
kidding.
goes very fast.
It does, and especially the last 20 minutes after advance, it's like, oh my god, the time just erodes rapidly.
You're not kidding. I mean, D, I'm guessing you feel the same way through all of this with trying to get the cameras and everything set, and all of a sudden you go, oh yeah.
Yeah, it definitely just, it can feel like a while at one point, then you look up and you realize, oh, we're 5 minutes away now. And especially when there's so much to talk about, so many things to get ready to troubleshoot occasionally. Yeah, the time absolutely flies by.
They say time flies when you're having fun, and rockets fly when they're ready to fly. Oh, come on, nothing?
They sure do. They do fly when they're ready to fly. That is technically a factual statement.
Thank you for the pity comment, D. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Here's an interesting question from Human. I know we've been talking a lot about earlier in the stream. You were talking about Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy, say, for the ISS deorbit vehicle and all the potentials with that. But here's a question of Starlink. I mean, obviously, Starship's first couple of flights, we expect it to be Starlinks. We have the boilerplate Starlinks, or the dumblinks, whichever you want to call them, set to go on the next Starship flight. But Human is wondering, would a Starlink launch on a Falcon Heavy be mass or volume restricted? And what about with the extended fairing that we've seen kind of rolling around? What do you think, Max?
That's a really interesting question. So to this point, the most amount of V2 mini satellites SpaceX has been able to load on Falcon 9 with these current fairings is 28, as we've seen now, I think 3 or 4 times. The full size V2 satellites that are designed specifically to fly on Starship are too big to be flown on Falcon of any kind, even with the extended fairing. Now, could they theoretically build a rack to hold more than 28, like just for example's sake, let's say anywhere from 35 to 40 in that larger fairing for Falcon Heavy? They could, but the cost to launch that in propellant and man hours to prepare Falcon Heavy for that might not be worth the additional satellites they are launching relative to the cost. So I think the answer to volume is just launch more. And Falcon, as we've seen now, especially from Slick 40, it can be turned around rapidly. And we've seen launches at times from Slick 40 be turned around in under 3 days. So it's a cool thought experiment, but I struggled to see that happening. But that is a great question, though.
It is a fantastic question. It would be very cool to actually see that happen. But like you said, as much work as it takes to get Falcon Heavy out there and up and ready, and again, based off of the the volume and what you'd be able to get out of it, it makes a lot more sense to be able to launch 3 Falcon 9s in a week than it does 1 Falcon Heavy every week or 2.
Yeah, unless you were able to launch literally 3 times the amount of Starlink satellites that you can on a single stake Falcon 9, I don't think it makes much sense.
Yeah, you'd have to launch probably 3 times as many to make up for it. But at this point now, in terms of Falcon 9's countdown at least, we should be getting into the propellant load portion of things here. So we will, of course, be keeping our eye on the base of the rocket there. It helps that this is a booster that is on its 18th flight, as opposed to the other night, where, as we confirmed, thanks to Max out there, it was B1094 on its first flight on the last one. And to see the contrast of that previous one coming in to this now back on the pad, it's crazy to me, Max. I have to imagine that was quite wild to once again see a clean booster coming back into port and now transitioning to this flight.
Yeah, it's almost nostalgic because we don't get to see that very often anymore, and the ones that we do see, they're all super dark and super sooty. So it's nice to remind yourself what a clean and shiny brand new Falcon looks like with only 1 flight of soot on it. Honestly, it brings me back to my first ever booster arrival, which was B1058, rest in peace, after DM2. So it's becoming a rarity nowadays, but hopefully it won't be as much of a rarity because with the flight cadence that SpaceX needs with Falcon 9 here, they're going to require more boosters at some point. So maybe we'll see some more bright, shiny new Falcon 9 cores, but time will tell.
Time will tell. And there is that photo on the left you see of booster 1094 making its way back into port. And of course, Carson liking and retweeting live on air, which all of you should be doing to it as well. We are seeing frost already, but it is on a different vehicle right now. Ship 35. We are seeing start to get frosty, so it sounds like once again we are going for a static fire attempt of Ship 35 down at Massey's in Starbase. At the same time, we're also keeping an eye on the vehicle on the right side of your screen, which should also be getting frosty. And in fact, I think I'm seeing frost on 2 different vehicles on the screen right now, as we predicted. Things on track for both vehicles testing at the exact same time. I mean, the good news is our thumbnail team made a really, really cool thumbnail for a dual testing stream. So hopefully that means we actually get to use it for this one and you'll get to see it afterwards. But yeah, we have frost on Ship 35 and on a booster 1080. Let's get back to some more questions as if this isn't confusing enough with all of the vehicles going on here. Let's go with a more simple question. And Dee, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this one to you. Misty is saying, I'm just going to watch a launch in June. Is there anywhere closer to 39A than the Banana Creek viewing site that I could get?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So the place I tend to recommend for 39A launches, especially for a daytime launch, and as long as it's open, is Playa Linda Beach. So that Banana Creek viewing site is absolutely incredible. It is worth keeping in mind the perspective of the tower and the view you have on the ground, but you'll have a spectacular view there. And the other one, if you want to go a bit more out in the wild per se, is Playa Linda Beach, which is a national park to the north. And you can look right down the beach and see all the launch pads lined up. And you're about 3 miles away from 39A if you walk down the beach a bit. Now, there is also a wonderful video you can check out for how to watch all of these launches in person in Florida. If you want to check out any launch from any other launch pad as well, because there are a ton of great areas, whether you're staying in Titusville, whether you're down in Cape Canaveral, it's hard to have a bad view of these launches, let's be honest.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere on the Cape, you're definitely down for a good view there. I mean, just the other night, I was over at Port Canaveral in that area for a 39A launch, and you could hear the rumble and obviously still get the gorgeous view. So it also depends if you're there for a 39A launch and a Pad 40 launch. You've got different viewing spots there as well. You also have Cars Park, which is a really good neutral site for kind of all of the major launch pads there. It's a little farther away, but you get a good view of everything. Now, on the left side of your screen there, it looks like the methane side of the tank farm is getting active at Massey's, which again, methane not used on Falcon 9 with the exception of the 2 lunar missions that we had seen on Falcon 9 where the lander required it, but not on the actual Falcon 9 itself. Starship, though, it looks like we're going to get another static fire again tonight. How many engines? We will see. I'll be interested to see. Here, I'm going to put this to chat, and then I'll ask you, Max. Which do you think happens first? Falcon 9 or Ship 35 static fire? Max, what do you think? I'm interested to see chat's response.
Well, that depends on when exactly we see frost on the surface of the tanks on Ship 35. I wouldn't, at the moment, considering where we are with the tank farm waking up especially the methane side of the tank farm waking up, I wouldn't be surprised or rule out the possibility that they are very close to each other. Whichever goes first, I'm probably going to say Falcon, just because we are more familiar with that timeline, at least here on the East Coast. And we have no exact countdown, or we have no exact time of when ship 35 could fire. We don't have that. We don't have access to that information. But I think either way, they will be very close to each other for sure.
It is going to be quite close from the looks of it, as someone pointed out as their prediction, which I can very much see happening. Falcon 9 likely maybe ship 35 around Seco, second engine cutoff. So, wow. Yeah, it's going to be tight, but we shall see. The other thing that we shall see is the continued countdowns here for both of these vehicles. And while we're kind of comparing the two on the screen here, Hugh Mann, once again with another really good question, saying, why is the Raptor engine chill much longer than the Merlin engine chill? Do we know why, Max?
Well, there's a lot more plumbing involved with the Raptors as well, being a full flow stage combustion cycle engine as opposed to an open cycle gas generator engine like the Merlin. And also the fuel that the Raptor uses is cryogenic on both sides, whereas the fuels that the Merlin uses is liquid oxygen, which is cryogenic, and then they have RP1. Granted, RP1 is super chilled, but I don't believe at that temperature it's quite cryogenic. So there's just a lot more complexities in the engine that require more sensitive or time-sensitive chill down measures. But Raptor is in order of magnitude or orders of magnitude more complex than Merlin could ever be. So that's probably why.
Yeah, and we'll see once we get the Raptor 3s online from what we've seen from the pictures and everything.
Hey Sawyer,
Yeah.
I see frost on the LOX tank on ship 35.
I do too. I'm also seeing frost on the tanks on Falcon 9 too. Growing. This is happening, folks. It's a double firing here. Hopefully we will see, what would that be? 16 engines firing up tonight?
I was gonna say 15, but I forgot about the poor MVAC. So yes, 16.
Yeah. Don't forget the MVAC. But yeah, as we were saying with that, we've seen the Raptor 3s are a lot less involved in terms of the plumbing and the parts from the images that we've seen. So maybe it'll be a little bit faster once R3s are installed. And of course, they continue to test those at Massey's where we have 24/7 live cameras. But yeah, hopefully. Now, here's a couple of Falcon Heavy questions. I'm going to combine them into one, and I'll give you a break, Max. I'll take the answer to this one. Artemis _ asking, first off, just out of curiosity, why does SpaceX never land the core of the Falcon Heavy? Is it just so they can get the full capability of the stage? Followed by a question from Severin Fisher asking, no apologies, by the way, needed for all the Falcon Heavy questions, but would a double drone ship landing be possible with the side boosters? So here's where we're at with that. To answer Artemis' side question first, the Falcon Heavy center core, the original plan was to land it on a drone ship downrange. They tried on the Falcon Heavy demo flight, and unfortunately they missed. Then they tried again for Arabsat, which was the second flight, and that one did indeed land, but it kind of lost it on the way back to the port. So basically, after that, they kind of stopped. They realized it's much more efficient at that point to just expend the center core and work on getting those side cores back. Because remember, the side cores can be used either for Falcon Heavy or Falcon 9. We have seen converted Falcon Heavy side cores become Falcon 9 boosters. You cannot do that with the core stage because of all the extra struts and things that are added to give it the rigidity and stability that it needs to take the load with those two side cores on it. Now, speaking of the side cores, to answer Severin's part of the question here, typically we are not going to see it. Could they? Probably. Is it possible or likely? Probably not. The main issue, of course, being with that right now the drone ships are their own precious commodity. They are launching as many of these flights as they can, and one of the biggest things is to land the booster for the Starlinks, as we mentioned earlier. These are pretty heavy satellites, so they land them downrange. You gotta land it. It takes about 2 days now, which is faster than it used to be, to get the booster back, then they immediately go back out to catch the next one. If you have 2 boosters that have landed, then both drone ships are out of commission for at least 3 or 4 days while they return, as opposed to a case like this where you get one that comes back, you have another one already out, ready, and waiting. So for right now, the most efficient thing is to basically just either expend those or have them land back at LZs 1 and 2 and the center core be expanded. 22 minutes and 40 seconds to go until Falcon 9. No number of seconds until we get to the Ship 35 static heavy. Static fire.
Subtle
Static
throat
heavy.
clearing there, Sawyer. Subtle throat clearing.
That wasn't that was totally me saying a time. You can totally rewind it and figure out what time that was.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right. My bad. I heard it.
Time for an app wondering, are those pictures similar scale, i.e. the distance to the target, the camera zoom, etc.? I'm not exactly sure what equipment we have out there. I know CP11 is out there. I'm not sure exactly how far away it's positioned versus where we have our cameras set on the lawn at the LC39 press site. Do you know, Max? Because you've been to both places?
I can at least tell you for sure that the distance from the camera on the right to Slick 40 is just over 4 miles, probably 4.3 or 4.4 miles. The camera on the left we are seeing there is Gage's feed, and he is just off of Highway 4, and that is, I've never driven down the road to Massey's, nor have I ever plotted it on a map, so I can't tell you exactly how far away it is. But for scale, a Falcon 9 fully stacked, both Stage 1 and Stage 2 with the fairings is only I think it's actually still not as tall as just the Super Heavy booster. So Super Heavy is a very large flying object. And don't get me wrong, Falcon 9 is not small either. It's still a very big launch vehicle. But in terms of actual scale that we're seeing, Starship, at least in terms of height, is not as tall as a Falcon 9 fully stacked, but Super Heavy is.
Yeah, if I recall, it's a 3-meter difference in height between Falcon 9 and the height of the Starship Super Heavy booster. I think it's 67 and either 69 or 70 meters, if I recall, off the top of my head.
It's somewhere around there, yeah.
Well, on the left side, things are starting to get cold. It looks like the methane tank is now getting cold on the ship there. As for Falcon 9, we know things are about to get even colder because we are just about to hit the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent, aka the best vent, and right on time. There it
Bingo.
is. Max, can you talk about the 20-minute, 20-second vent, please?
Yes. So the vapor that you are, should be there. It is. There it is. The vapor that you are seeing being dispensed out of the transporter erector right now is SpaceX thermally conditioning the lines in the transporter erector for liquid oxygen to flow through it to begin LOX load of the Falcon 9's second stage. That is, I can't remember if they use LOX or if they use liquid nitrogen. Somebody correct me on that. But that is what you are seeing now, and that cloud coming out of the line, what you're seeing now are the results from that. So, and as you can tell, I can't really tell. Is that flowing towards? It is. So
Yes,
it is flowing directly towards the camera, which is from the pad's perspective, is slightly north, but mostly west. And that usually serves as a great indicator to what the winds are doing and what the atmosphere is like here in Florida. Typically, a bigger cloud means that it is very humid tonight, or in any night or day that it's launching. And if it's a long cloud, it's very windy. If the cloud is just sticking around the tower or flowing right down to the ground, the air is about as stagnant as it can be. So that is what is happening right now, and that should wrap up in about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, where they should begin loading LOX into the upper stage of Falcon 9 at T-minus 16 minutes.
So at this point, it's safe to say that once that happens, there will be 3 different types of LOX load ongoing, with the first stage, the second stage, and Ship 35.
Indeed. It's a very exciting time. And the methane tank is actually getting cold now, so they are either in the process of loading methane into Ship 35, or they are about to.
chaos right here in the space world, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
It's a busy night on, I was going to say the Space Coast, but just in the spaceflight world in general, folks.
It really is. By the way, David Miller coming in with a $10 super chat, no message, but we really, really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. That's the only reason we're able to have all of this happening here. Cameras live at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station view and live views at the Massey's test site in Starbase simultaneously with the live commentary with 2 field teams right now is because of that. So thank you, everybody who is here and supporting and watching and liking and all of that. It really does help us do what we do for you. Here's a really good question. I'm surprised I've never seen this asked before in all of the Starlink type streams that we do, Max. It's Palisade is asking, does Falcon 9 auto land or does it have a manual override in case of emergency, i.e. some guy with a control stick? Can they actually fly it back that way?
You know, I'm going to throw my hands up and say no. I think the distance between the drone ship and the booster would implement some kind of latency that might make a manual landing, just inaccurate. I think Falcon 9's onboard computers and avionics have a built-in abort scenario if it's either too far off target. I mean, I'm sure it does. I mean, that's why it first aims for the ocean until it has a good ignition of the center Merlin engine for the landing burn. But if it's off target, it can just correct for itself with the engine gimbling and also with the help of the grid fins up top near the interstage if it's going fast enough for those grid fins to have an effect on the airflow. But otherwise, if it's really that far off target and there's no way to correct for it, it will just go right into the water.
Yeah, as we've seen with, what was it, Sierra 16?
Yes.
Yeah, where a valve got stuck, it started spinning, and rather than aiming, that was actually a LZ-1 landing. So rather than aiming for land, it stays for the ocean, and then the grid fins help steer it. It chose not to steer it, and instead intentionally splash it into the ocean to save all the ground infrastructure. So it was the one of the few times it's good to see it crash.
It would have been an LZ-1 landing.
Semantics, yeah. Good point. Well, at this point, though, we should have, as mentioned, 3 different types of LOX load underway with that 20-minute, 20-second bend stopped. That means LOX load is underway on stage 2 of Falcon 9. It continues along with the RP-1 on stage 1 of Falcon 9, and we know that Loxygen loading into Ship 35, and very likely methane is or just about to load in to Ship 35 now, too. Okay, it is happening, folks. It is happening.
It is picking up here really quickly.
This is a fun question from Chad Skyfire asking, who would win for prop load, Starship or Falcon 9? The answer, Max, is surprisingly closer than anyone would think for a vehicle that is as massive as Starship is. It is Starship just by a hair, right?
Sorry,
Falcon 9 just by a hair.
It's Falcon 9 by a hair right now, but once they get the tank farm for Pad B up, those pumps are absolute beasts of units. I think I've heard some predictions going around that once Pad B is online with its bespoke tank farm, that they will be able to load the Starship vehicle, both ship and booster, in under 30 minutes, more closer to 20. Which is nearing half as long as it takes to load Falcon 9, which holds 10% of the propellant overall in terms of volume. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And right now, I think Starship is only behind by a few minutes. And before, I think it was before Flight 3 or Flight 4 that prop load for Starship took over an hour. And obviously they're much quicker than that now, so it's insane. Yeah, but in order to have a rapid reuse of Starship, both booster and ship, you have to be able to load your vehicles quickly, and that is the goal of Pad B to improve on what they have not so far with Pad A.
And Alex making a crazy comparison in the back channel here. I know we're using all the superlatives, but I feel it's appropriate for this. Right now, Ship 35 has the equivalent of about 3 Falcon 9s worth of liquid oxygen on board.
Doesn't It doesn't look like it because the amount, like I guess the height of the frost is, I guess, shorter. But remember, Starship is much wider than Falcon 9 is, so it just by that alone holds, again, 3 times the volume so far that Falcon 9 does. So don't be deceived. It is a lot of locks.
You'd say it's a lox of it.
Oh no.
And there goes all
Sawyer.
our support drying up.
You were doing so great. You were doing so good.
Oh, come on. I had to do at least one. All right, I'll keep going. Apocalypse Cow, Danger Moo. Hey, I got a sigh from D as well. Saying static launch, Starlink fire. Huzzah! Very clever. there.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! He hath found the Holy Grail. Thank you, Danger Moo, for that. We appreciate it. Michael Ray Relia gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much for that. 33 Raptors v me gifting a Red Team membership. I love the name. Kevin Harrington with the camera fund love. Thank you. We'll have to split that now between the Cape and Starbase here. Well, look at that venting going from ship 35 there. It's one of those equalization pressurized vents, it looks like. Apocalypse Cow again, gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Methane Man gifting 10 Red Team memberships. If you got one of those memberships, please make sure you give him a thank you and enjoy the perks that you get here as being a member, including some photos that are members exclusive that you will see here, replays of all the Raptor sides if you missed them. Awesome perks with that, so thank you very much. Bideford, a name we love to see here, saying, obviously SpaceX doesn't realize we like watching both things, just not at the same time. Thanks, NSF. Hugs.
Yes, we do. What do you mean? Yes, we do. Everything at once. Light those candles.
Just go cross-eyed and then you get a Starship 9. It's great.
Yeah, right.
And then Long This with a $50 super chat. Wow, thank you. Asking, what Star Trek OG crew member are you and the film crew? Max, D?
What was the question again? Like, sorry, I'm just trying to
What
figure
Star
out
Trek
wording.
OG crew member are you and the film crew?
Star Trek. Okay. Well, I have to come clean
So-
and say I've never watched Star Trek. I've never seen it, to be honest with you. So I cannot answer the question.
I won't comment. I'll let that slide.
D?
Oh,
Can
no.
I just so Sawyer, which OG Star Trek crew member are you?
I feel like I would probably be Bones if I had to be anyone, but I also could probably pass as a Tribble depending on the day of the week if I've shaved or not. So no one's
Cool. So moving on to the next question.
No one's gonna get
Wait.
that.
Like that one
I-
line. It's like that one line in Top Gear that people who watch the show know too well. Oh no.
Oh,
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Continuing along then. Let's see. Questions here. Oh, this is an interesting one. 9-8 Central asking, Max, what's the difference between SLIC and LC, if any? Besides, I guess the word space, right?
That's it. And yeah, so those are just acronyms. So for LC39A and 39B, that just stands for Launch Complex 39A and 39B, which are at the Kennedy Space Center. Moving south, you have SLIC, the SLIC designation, SLC, Space Launch Complex. So that's always been a thing for the then Air Force, now Space Force pads, even though technically SLIC 40. SLIC 41 is technically on KSC property, but still has the SLC designation. But then again, LC 36, where Blue Origin launches New Glenn, is on Space Force property, but it's LC 36. None of it makes sense. But essentially, the only difference between LC and SLC is literally just the letter S, which stands for space. That's all it means.
But if you say the wrong one, you will absolutely get in trouble for it because people like naming conventions weirdly.
I mean, it does make a difference.
LC 36, SLIC 36.
I mean, if you said SLIC 39A, you would like get beheaded. Like that just sounds wrong.
I mean, I get it for something like that, but again, like we were saying, 36, 14, you got Blue Origin and Relativity with those. Are they really going to care as much?
They better.
They might tell you to chill, I guess. But one thing that we know will be chilling in just 1 minute are those 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of Falcon 9. Max, why do we chill down those engines before launch?
So you chill down all of the plumbing in the Merlins for the same reason you chill down the prop lines in the transporter erector, in that you do not want to flow super cold cryogenic propellant into any plumbing or materials that are at ambient temperature or at a much warmer temperature than the fluids are at, because that can result in thermal shocking, which can cause flash gassing, or even worse, cracking of any of your materials, your manifolds, your pumps, your plumbing, anything. It's the last thing you want to do. So what you do to compensate for that is you slowly just dribble a small amount of propellant into the nozzle, into the pumps, and every bit of plumbing in the engine to thermally condition it to be at or very near the temperatures that the LOX are and the RP1 are prior to ignition, to ensure a smooth startup. So that should be underway actually right now, because we just crossed the T-minus 7 minute mark. That should be happening right now.
Yes, so that is one step closer to launch. For those just joining, by the way, on the right side of your screen is Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On board are 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites, which ties the record for the most satellites of a V2 launched by Falcon 9. The booster doing it is booster 1080 on its 18th flight. The hope is that it will then land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions downrange. In the meantime, D, I know you are going to finish getting your cameras and everything set up for that launch. We will talk to you afterwards.
Sounds good. I will see you all on the other side of this.
And on the other side of your screen, also for those just joining, is Ship 35, located at the Massey's test site in Starbase, Texas, where, as you could see, liquid oxygen load going really well there, and we are definitely starting to see what appears to be a frost line forming on the methane tank. So methane load underway there as well. We'll keep an eye out for the tank farm starting to slow down there, which would be an indication of a static fire attempt tonight as well. A reminder, the clock in the top left of your screen is just the countdown for Falcon 9. We do not have an exact time for a static fire of Ship 35. So that is a TBD. The clock is counting down, though, for the Starlink launch in 5.5 minutes. Which, Max, what can we expect in these final 5 minutes here before launch?
So in the next 5 minutes, thermal conditioning of the Merlins will continue, and then the next big milestone will happen once we cross the T-minus 1 minute barrier, where the onboard computer will command Falcon 9 to be in its final pre-launch procedures, i.e. the call out that we hear Falcon 9 is in startup. Following that, we should be hearing from the SpaceX launch director around T-minus 45 seconds that all is go for launch, both the launch vehicle itself, in this case Falcon 9, and with all of the ground service equipment. Engine ignition will be commanded at T-minus 3 seconds, and then hopefully 3 seconds later, we'll get a Falcon 9 lifting off of Slick 40. But I have to say, honestly, right now, my heart rate is at like 120 or 130, because it is having a Starship upper stage, in this case Ship 35, and a Falcon 9, both well into prop load and nearing a launch and a static fire in very close proximity, we think, is one of the most exciting just conditions or circumstances that we could possibly imagine right now, on top of both launching within a few minutes of each other. Like, this is incredible. I can't almost even think right now. Like, my heart rate is going so fast.
Yes, I will say it's a good thing I took my heart medicine this morning, or mine would be through the roof right now as well. So I hear you on that. At this point now, the strong back should be retracted on Falcon 9, leaning back 1.8 degrees to throw all the way back at liftoff to allow Falcon 9 to clear the tower there. We should be getting calls in the next minute and 2 minutes for wrap-up of RP1 and LOX load on Falcon 9. Meanwhile, on the left side, the liquid oxygen tank is full on Ship 35, and that is an indication, by the way, that we will expect a full 6-engine static fire from Ship 35 tonight. if what we've seen in the past is any indication for tonight. So we should expect 6 engines on the left side of your screen, 9 engines plus the Merlin vacuum on the right side of your screen. As we get into the final part, go ahead.
See, I can't even talk now. I was just going to say that we are getting awfully close to what would be hopefully a T0 for a static fire for Ship 35. The LOX tank is pretty much full, which is what they would need for a full 6-engine test, like you said, Sawyer. But also, they don't load any more methane than they really need, plus a little bit, because you don't want to hurt your turbopumps on any of the Raptors. So, and usually this is about the amount of prop that we see in the methane tank before a full 6-engine test, which means
Stage 1
we are
is complete.
Here we go. Stage 1 LOX load complete on Falcon 9, but we are also nearing prop load complete for the test, hopefully, of Ship 35 in just a few minutes. Golly, this is so exciting. Holy cow.
It is. Really quickly, as we get to the final parts here, I do need to thank Apocalypse Cow for gifting 50 red team memberships. Holy cow.
Holy crap.
Beyond appreciated. I couldn't let that go till after launch as I normally would. I need to give thanks for that. So thank you so much. If anyone did get one of those gifted memberships, please give them a thank you. And hopefully, for everyone else, we can earn all of your subscriptions and things here with our coverage tonight. We should be about to wrap up now propellant load on Falcon 9 in its entirety. You'll also see the gas closeout lines, which will be indicated by that final purge, as you see on the right side of your screen. What looks like the 20-minute vent again, just at T-minus 1.5 minutes. Of course, we will be keeping an eye on everything going on with Ship 35, but at this point, we are going to switch all of our focus right now to Falcon 9, 80 seconds away from launch. At 1 minute, Falcon 9 is expected to enter startup. That is when the tanks will pressurize to flight levels, as well as all the onboard computers on Falcon taking control of the rest of the countdown. You will hear that on a slight delay from the SpaceX feed, so our clock has less latency than their feed, so you will see the 1 minute mark now, and that should be Falcon 9 entering startup, and we should get confirmation of that within the next 10 seconds or so. Getting frosty,
Falcon
getting
9
exciting.
Startup.
And there is that call. Falcon 9 is in startup. The next call that we will listen for is the go for launch from the launch director over at SpaceX. "20 seconds now. 15 seconds. We will be quiet once it lifts off, but for now, with 10 seconds to go until launch, keep an eye out for the Rainbirds there, and engine ignition, and liftoff of Falcon 9 with 28 more satellites. Go, Starlink V2 Mini, go." Let's listen in. And as it crackles into the night, Falcon 9 going supersonic, faster than the speed of sound, and passing through max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, and now throttling back up, continuing its climb uphill here. So far, Max, everything looking good. How is it looking and sounding by you?
Sure is looking good and looking awfully beautiful here from the ground, and you can tell it's a very humid night here in Florida because the sound carries a lot differently when the air is thicker. It carries the sound a lot better, and actually the roof of the hut, which is where I currently am, was shaking a lot more than it normally does for a launch from Slick 40. Falcon 9 is not a quiet rocket, but it certainly was loud tonight. And now we are watching the exhaust begin to expand as the ambient pressure around all 9 Merlin engines begins to decrease, thus allowing the exhaust to expand and increase its length, and now beginning to change color from orange to red, and just in a moment to a very beautiful blue.
And there is that blue color coming in. You can also tell a little bit by the cloud cover there and the haze on the camera. You see Falcon 9 continuing its climb uphill, coming up on 3 events in rapid succession, which will be MECO, main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and SES-1. There is MECO. There's main engine cutoff. So that should be separation happening now, followed by ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine in what is known as SES-1. And you'll be able to see it on the right side of your screen on a slight delay, as we mentioned earlier from SpaceX, so it's like a replay of it. And there is stage separation. And there is ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. You see that green flash with the T-tab, as we were discussing earlier in the stream. And now the grid fins will deploy on Falcon 9, excuse me. Meanwhile, Starship, we have been seeing some venting from the QD on the left side of your screen, which means that a static fire there is imminent. So if that does static fire, you will be able to hear that as well. We will be quiet for that. Meanwhile, fairings separating on Falcon 9 on the right side of your screen. Those fairing halves will splash down after parachuting down and will be recovered to be, hopefully, flown again. And Max, which of our marine assets are out tonight for fairings and for the booster landing?
Sorry, just getting my bearings here. So out in the Atlantic Ocean right now is the drone ship. Just read the instructions, and hopefully picking up the fairings out of the ocean is Bob, just a bit farther downrange. Both are over 600 kilometers southeast of Florida's east coast, just north of the Bahamas.
All right, things still happening on the left side of your screen there, too, at Starbase getting frosty. Again, we could be moments away from a static fire of Ship 35 at the Massey's test site in Starbase. Meanwhile, on the right side of your screen, you see Stage 2, 127 kilometers away from the surface of the Earth, and Stage 1 just hitting the apogee, the highest point in its trajectory. And you will see that speed start to pick up again, the data on the bottom left of that right box, and there you go. That means it is now on its way back down to land on Just Read the Instructions. Coming up next will be another engine fire. Will it be from Ship 35 first, or Max, will it be the entry burn? What happens on the entry burn at least, since we know that's coming up?
So coming up on entry burn, Falcon 9 will light up 3 of its Merlin engines, first of which being the center Merlin, followed by engines 5 and engine 9 shortly after. The purpose of the entry burn is to slow Falcon 9 down to a velocity sufficient enough to not tear itself apart when it does begin to re-enter the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. As we often say here, Falcon is fighting fire with fire. So that should be coming up in just a few moments, but also Gage in the back channel telling us he is seeing the SpaceX drone going up. So the race to see if Falcon 9 lands first or if Ship 35 fires first is still anyone's guess.
Yes, and we should be coming up now on that entry burn. You see some of that plasma there on the left box, inside the right box, if that makes sense, as those grid fins pop out. So we'll be seeing that entry burn within the next couple of seconds. A reminder, we will have replays of both events afterwards. So if you missed one, don't worry, we'll have them both for you. And coming up now on that entry burn, just a couple of seconds. Meanwhile, as pointed out, the drone on its way up, which means we could see static fire any moment on the left side of your screen too.
I can actually just see the entry burn through the clouds here at the Kennedy Space Center, albeit very hazy because there's a lot of cloud cover out.
And there is, again, the slight delay on it. You can see there that's 1 engine, and that is 3 engines. You can tell once it starts creating that line that all 3 of them have lit. And then, once it gets ready to finish, it will shut down the same way. It will go back down to 1 engine, and then it will shut off completely. So far, everything looking good on Falcon 9. Having seen enough of these and watching the numbers, all looks good. And there is shutdown for the entry burn.
Should start seeing some plasma buildup on the titanium grid fins on Falcon 9's first stage, like you are seeing there now. That is just a byproduct of the superheated gases that form around Falcon 9 as it re-enters at very, very fast velocities.
Yes, and it picks up speed for a couple of seconds before starting to burn it off very quickly. Already now down to 4,000 kilometers per hour and dropping fast. 15 kilometers off the deck of just read the instructions. Meanwhile, on the right side of your screen, the Merlin vacuum engine continuing as expected as stage 2 continues to burn nominally. 9 kilometers to go. You may actually see the light of the drone ship in one of the grid fins on the way down, so keep an eye out for that. As we also keep an eye on the left side of the screen there for Ship 35 potential static fire. A lot going on here, so hopefully you've got the ability to watch multiple things happening here simultaneously as we are.
God, this is tense.
Yeah, normally it's just the Falcon 9 part. The fact that we have both things happening and one we don't know exactly when.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the SpaceX drone in the same position it was last night. And there's the landing burn, for Falcon 9 Stage 1. And you see the grid fins wiggling as it steers itself towards the deck of the drone ship in the thicker parts of the atmosphere. Next up will be landing leg deploy. And it's hard to see, but Falcon 9 once again on the deck of the drone ship, booster 1080, completing its 18th flight and receiving that Dash 19. Meanwhile, the Merlin vacuum engine about to shut down on SECO 1, second engine cutoff 1. We say that because there is another burn that we don't get to see, unfortunately, at about T plus 50 minutes into flight, and that will be the final couple second burn before the release of those Starlink V2 satellites. And there we go. That is SECO, second engine cutoff. So for those who are placing your bets over in Vegas, the winner of which will happen first is the complete flight of Falcon 9 as we now continue our testing here for Ship 35. We will be getting the replays for you for Falcon 9. Of course, right now, though, eyes are all on Ship 35.
There we go!
Here it goes.
Wow!
Let's listen. That was a long one.
That was a lot longer than I was perhaps anticipating, but looks like we're still seeing a bit of fire from the bottom end of Ship 35 there.
Yeah, I don't think that's fire from the engines actually firing. That appears to be just fire from the residual there. And there goes the SpaceX drone. That was at least 20, 25 seconds?
That was a lot longer than perhaps a lot of people were anticipating. Yeah, that was...
I thought, yeah.
I wasn't watching the clock, so if somebody in the back channel could get an exact time of how long that burn lasted.
Yeah, that's again, I looked like about 20, 25 seconds from what I was counting there, and that definitely looked a little toastier at the end than I think most of us were expecting as well, after what was supposed to be those engines shutting down.
Yeah, normally there is a bit of noise with the Raptor shutting down in what we call the honk. That is a characteristic of the Raptor that is unique to it, and we hear it every single time it shuts down. But I can't recall hearing a honk there. It sounded, dare I say, a bit more dramatic than just a honk, even from 6 Raptors.
It really did. Also, shout out to SpaceX on the timing of that one. Moments after SECO confirmed, we get the Ship 35, what definitely looked like a 6-engine static fire, albeit not the cleanest static fire that we have seen.
The replays are certainly going to be interesting, either for both vehicles for sure, but especially on Ship 35.
Yeah, we have a lot to analyze on that. That definitely looked. I'm trying to find the right word. Slightly problematic, at least comparison to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of that was an energetic shutdown, from what we could see, at least compared to previous static fires. We can't see anything right now. I mean, obviously, we don't have a direct view of the engine section of Ship 35. But yeah, that looked, dare I say, dramatic?
I think dramatic's a good word for it. Yeah.
Do we just
than usual?
Yeah? Did we just observe something, perhaps?
Oh no! Don't use observation. You can see though the venting there from the tanks, which is normal after a static fire. Again, they do that to equalize out the pressures as well. I don't see any detanking events. The potential that they may do a second static fire afterwards seems to be out the window just based off of that energetic shutdown, but it's never out of the question with SpaceX. Oh my gosh. I want to thank some people here really quickly while we have a moment, while we pull the replays so we can analyze this. Alex Vaughn gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that. Toby, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. FFC T-Hawk, which goes first, Berlin or Raptor? Wait a second, this isn't McGregor Live. Thank you very much for that. Yes, we do see all of the engines testing McGregor Live 24/7 right here on NSF. Apocalypse Cow saying, man, this doubleheader is just awesome. Great coverage. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us for all of this. We will get these replays. We will analyze together. And Cabinet Kenny, Victory Toot. That was long. Cool stuff, NSF. Thank you very much for that as well. So the numbers that we're seeing here in the back channel from people with their stopwatches and doing all the math, it appears to be a 30-second exact static fire, starting at 9:00:35 p.m., ending at 9:01:05 p.m. Central Time. So, Max, what are you thinking now? Just looking at the ship now and after what we just saw, while I get some more questions in the queue here.
I don't really have a ton to say now. I'm going to wait for the replays to start popping up and where we can analyze the footage a lot more. But there was certainly a lot there that we hadn't seen before on previous static fires, even with the entire minute-long static fire from Ship 34. Eager to see what we can see. It's just difficult to take your eyes off of it because you don't want to miss it. God forbid if something happens.
You mean an SN10?
Oh gosh. We don't need that right now, Sawyer. Come on.
We don't need more of these. I agree, but someone's got to say it. But yeah, it definitely looks a little bit steamy there. Do we know what the pad deluge options are basically when it comes to Massey's test site? Have we seen any of that? Like, do they have a sort of Rainbird type system there? I don't think they do they?
It's some kind of deluge system they use with the flame diverter they have inside the trench, albeit I don't think we have an idea of exactly how those two work together. But it's some combination of those two that obviously that they don't have at either launch pad at the moment that's usable. Obviously, they're building a flame trench with a water-cooled flame diverter over at orbital pad B right next to pad A. But I assume that took a lot of inspiration from what SpaceX was able to build at Massey's. Good Lord.
By the way, interesting comment from Gage in the back channel here, just saying we can smell the Raptors now. The plume just blew over here, saying it smells like burnt waffles.
Yeah, I imagine it smells like burnt something because the exhaust that comes out of both the Raptors or really most any rocket engine is very, very hot. So that is why you need extremely robust supporting infrastructure with any sort of flame bucket or flame trench or flame diverter to ensure that your exhaust is diverted safely, i.e. Starship Flight 1.
I mean, it made its own flame trench, kind of. Just wasn't expected to.
It made something. It for sure made something.
Okay, fine. It was a crater.
Crater's more accurate. Yeah, that's fair.
Here's another interesting question, and this is something we were looking at during last night's static fire, and appeared that the TPS last night bared pretty well. What about tonight? Alan W., the suborbital Petunia, is asking, looks like a tilectomy. There are some missing from the aft flap's hinge cover and maybe a few on its upper belly. I didn't see any falling off. That could also be that maybe we were looking at the base of the rocket more so than the top, but I'm trying to compare. Are there some missing flaps underneath, or tiles underneath that flap up there?
So I was trying to analyze the TPS shield before the sun went down when the light was better. We obviously already knew about the tiles that were missing right there in the middle toward the top, and then that small little section above it. But those tiles that you were seeing missing near so let me orient myself. It's the right side flap of ship 35. Those were missing prior to the static fire. Those were already gone, and so were the ones at the very bottom. They have a lot more taken off, kind of near the skirt section, near the engines. I don't see any new tile absences right now, but it can be difficult to tell in these very low light nighttime conditions. But so far, it looks pretty good compared to what it was beforehand.
Yeah, I'm trying to look underneath that topmost flap that we could see from this angle if there's a little bit. Doesn't seem like it, but it's hard to tell. As you mentioned, with the night lighting, we'll keep an eye. We'll be able to do A/B testing, and of course, once daylight comes, we will absolutely be able to take a look and do some good comparisons from the earlier testing. Again, working on getting all those replays. There's a bunch of them to pull between two launches. So we will be able to look back and maybe see if things were or were not normal on that one. Curveless Sphere wondering, could the fire underneath have potentially been intentional to test any new fire suppression? I don't think that's something that would be intentional, especially after what we saw last night with the single engine static fire test. But Max, what are your thoughts?
I would agree with that. Any sort of system like that, I presume, would have been tested at a facility like McGregor before. And actually, the drone,
The drone?
SpaceX drone, back on the right hand side. So they are obviously, normally by this point, if all went well, the drone would have gone home by now, usually. But obviously, it is sticking around to inspect something. So maybe they saw something happen that they didn't quite like. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we have more replays coming to take a better look at it. But that drone is for sure sticking around, and that is a sign that they want to look at something further.
Yeah, that means one of two things. Either they're going to go again, or something happened that they want to look at. And in this case, it is very much more likely the latter than the former. But it's also in a different spot from where it normally is for the static fire. It's definitely focused more from our vantage point here, the right side of the screen, whereas during the actual fire, it's more towards the left side.
Correct.
So is that the direction of the flame trench, it looks like?
No, the flame trench basically faces directly away from the TPS system. So it basically faces directly south. Ship orients itself right now, at least the way it is at Massey's, is the unshielded section faces south, and the TPS section, or the tiles, face north. And the trench blows right toward the Rio Grande. So if the drone was inspecting the flame trench, it would be off toward the left hand side of the screen.
Yes, and the drone now saying, "I must go. My people need me," as it flies off. An interesting thought, and again, a lot of this is we'll see it as we get replays and look back at this and try and figure things out. But Brempton asking, could the fire underneath be a sign of the same outcome as Flight 7 and 8's sudden fire in the engine bay? Huh.
Tough to say, because to replicate those conditions that demised both Ship 33 and Ship 34, you'd likely need to do that in flight, and that's very difficult to do on the ground. The LOX load that's currently on the ship is not what it would be at the point in flight that those failures occurred. At that point, the LOX tank was nearly empty and the ship weighed a lot less than what it does now. For these static fires, they typically load up the LOX tank all the way, at least for these 6 engine tests, in order to add ballast to the ship and make it easier on the stand and the hold down clamps that hold ship 35 in place. It's a lot less work for them to do to hold down a heavier ship when fighting 6 engines of thrust than it is with a nearly empty tank of LOX. That LOX is heavy, and so is methane. Any liquid is heavy. LH2 notwithstanding. It is a very it's quite heavy. I think ship weighs over, I want to say it's over 1,000 metric tons when it's fully fueled, and take away the methane, I'm sure it's still maybe 600 to 700 tons. So that's a lot less work for those hold down clamps to do. And if they did opt to fire all 6 engines for that duration with a nearly empty LOX tank, I would imagine those hold down clamps or the any part of that static fire stand is not built to withstand that.
Yeah, and we now have some replays, so let's take a look at these. This went a little bit farther away, but we'll be able to kind of get a good idea of the whole plume here.
Okay, ignition.
That second bright flash we normally see.
Yep. Usually go sea levels, then RVEX.
Sorry if we don't talk a lot during this. We're watching it at the same time as you for the first time.
Yep, bear with us.
To that point, it looks good.
Looks good so far.
And that well, there's something.
Yep, that definitely, yikes.
You bet.
You concur.
So
We
yeah,
don't
that's
need-
not
We
the
we
flash.
certainly don't need any more failures of a Starship V2.
And then there's another flash at the end there. There should only be 1 or 2 flashes on the way out, not 3. That is
Correct.
definitely an additional flash that we should not be seeing in there, at least from what we've seen in the testing of past V2 ships.
And there was certainly a lot more residual fire hanging around the engine section than we normally see. I mean, the Raptors by themselves already have a very fiery shutdown. That's how they shut down. Okay, here we go. There's this angle.
And someone making a good point here was Alex in the back channel. Better that they have this on the ground as opposed to in flight.
Indeed.
I mean, everything looks impressive for the first 20 or 25 seconds or so of what appears to be a 30-second static fire. And things get very bright. And there's the flash. And another flash.
And notice how that was right before shutdown. Sawyer, I
And the
want to
fire
pose
up inside the vehicle there.
I want to pose a question to you.
Yes.
Do you think SpaceX was targeting another 60-second static fire, and that I don't want to call it a failure because we don't know what happened, but whatever happened in that bright flash triggered a full shutdown, or was that a planned duration and that just so happened to occur at the end?
The thing is, if it wasn't exactly 30 seconds, I would think you might be right, but it was too convenient for it to be exactly 30 seconds. As we saw last time, everything got extra roasty toasty, shall we say, after the 1 minute long one. The flame trench had some serious damage. So I think to avoid that, they may have split it in half to be able to get that longer duration, but also still get the data. So I think it's very safe to say 30 seconds might have been a planned time.
Fair enough. That
Let's
plume is
watch
just
this one.
enormous. Good lord. And that's just from 6 Raptors from ship.
Okay, there's a flash event. This is
Yeah, okay.
cool to see it here. And there's another flash there, which that looked like it was the one that should have been shut down.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot more residual fire than we normally see after a Raptor shutdown. A lot more, actually.
Admittedly, it goes out relatively quickly afterwards, but that could just be hard to tell with the frost.
This should be a good angle.
Love you to see the ice falling off.
Yep. And look at how violently the exhaust is leaving the flame trench. Seeing some venting from the methane tank to maintain pressure. That's normal.
That's also a very different colored flash.
Yeah.
It's more
I mean, that-
white than the others.
That could also just be down to the camera's color correction.
But I mean, all of our cameras did that though.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
could
yeah.
be the color correction, but yeah.
Right.
And the flame's still coming up the side there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, look underneath. You can see the engines are still hot. And that's not just glowing hot. That looked like fire hot.
Yep.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to D-Wise from the field. Thank you for all of your help with the Starlink coverage. We will talk to you next time. Now let's listen into the test on this one. Or watch it first and then we'll get the audio later. And let's see.
What a scene that is just by itself.
Wow.
That was a
Oof,
big flash.
that is huge.
Ooh. From this angle, it looks like the fire that's below the engines or in the engine skirt looks a lit. Ooh, wow. That's a lot of residual.
Yeah. It looks like it's not a lot, and then you see that puff up again, which hard to tell which of those is actual engine shut off and what could be just residual gases or whatever making the poof there.
Yep. And it's still orange. You still see it there. It's still lingering.
Wow. Very
So
interested to see chat's thoughts on this now too as we keep watching through all of this.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't really get a great idea without having a great view inside the flame trench. But until SpaceX grants us those those views, we'll have to just deal with what we have now. Oh my gosh. I think at this point, the protocol for SpaceX is to get the vehicle safed as quickly as possible and get a look at what exactly happened.
There is a road closure for a rollback that is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. We'll see if they keep that, if they end up keeping it out at Massey's longer, if they want to bring it back during that time frame.
There's that flash. Wow.
And there's still fire there too.
That's definitely not normal. So either an RVAC wasn't happy, or multiple sea levels weren't happy, or both, or there was some kind of failure in the flame trench, and debris from that may have come up and hit something. Tough to say.
Exactly. What we are doing also, folks, is pulling up the ship 34-minute long static fire to use as a comparison to this.
And those two distinct flashes there were the ignition of the sea level Raptors and then the RVACs specifically.
Which is reversed, if I remember rightly, from what they actually do during flight.
No, I think that they fired the sea levels first.
Is it the sea levels first?
Somebody in the back channel help me. Alex! Alex
is typing.
RVACs fire first in flight. Okay.
I thought for some reason I read they were backwards.
So it might be that sequence for the static fire. I'll have to go look at previous footage.
Again, we're pulling up the other static fire, so we'll be able to do a comparison here. Look at that, though. That is And then you see that blue color as well. Okay, it's hard to tell with the color change what is the lighting, what is our cameras differentiating, but everyone, of course, with the yikes you bet concurs. Even Celadon with the $2 New Zealand super chat saying yikes as well.
So Sawyer, I'm pulling up some footage now from ship 31 on its static fire way back last year. The RVAX did fire first on the stand, so that's what it is. So they fire the RVAX first, and then the sea level Raptors come after that.
Unless it was different because this is V2.
Yeah, but they still use the V2 Raptors.
True. Let's see, a lot of people talking about, the third flash maybe being fire extinguished. That bluish color was what happened when a Raptor ate itself at McGregor.
Yep.
And
also what happened to the Raptor on SN8 after its flip and burn.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Engine rich is not a place you want your engines to be.
No. Matthew Dawson asking, by the way, do we expect them to be throttling these engines during a static fire? Could that be part of the issue?
We have seen them. So SpaceX has released some footage from a high-speed camera they have inside the flame trench looking up at the Raptors. And sometimes they release it in like super slow or super fast frame rates, like probably 600 frames a second or higher. I would presume it's in the thousands, but I couldn't tell. But if you speed that footage up into what's real time, you can actually see, especially in these sea level engines, you will see the Mach diamond change its location up and down, which is an indicator that they are throttling the engines. So yes, they do that at Massey's, depending on whatever test profile they are targeting. But yes, they do that. And also, I think it's worth pointing out now that the frost line on the methane tank is about gone, and the frost line on the LOX tank is beginning to decrease. So they are well into the detanking process.
Yeah, so that's the indication that there's just the single static fire tonight, and that they will probably take advantage of that rollback opportunity road closure that they have tomorrow to return it back and do some testing here. A lot of people pointing out the blue flash still. I laughed way too hard at this, so I have to say it. New job posting for plumbing engineer coming soon.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, Matrix said it was
Be
very funny.
nice.
But we don't know that it was plumbing or anything along those lines. We don't know if it was the Raptor. We don't know if it was the plumbing. We don't know if that was intentional or unintentional, especially given the issues that we've seen in this exact portion of the engine area for the previous two ships, for Flight 7 and Flight 8. I definitely see the bluer part of the flame with that engine bit. So let's see. Yeah, that blue is the orange.
So you know what?
more
So you know
regular.
what? That was just green, and that was just the camera compensating, and so that just looks blue. I can almost guarantee to the naked eye that would look more green, which is an indicator of some kind of failure within the engine itself or an engine-rich environment, which you don't want your engines to be in. Yikes.
Yeah, either way, it should either be the orangish yellow or white, not blue like
Correct.
that.
Correct.
I do want to thank some people here really quick. Brian Cavett, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. And then G Mullins saying you would think you would see some damage at the engine area if something blew up. But again, it's hard to tell from these angles unless SpaceX releases something super up close like we saw with the single engine static fire the other day.
Well, you say that, but the sea level Raptors are in their own enclosed environment. So if there was to be a failure of one of them, the goal with those enclosed environments is to not affect the engine next to it. And I believe the RVACs also have their own enclosed environment above the thrust chamber. So
The attic.
Yeah. Well, no. It's well, maybe I'll have to see how the engines are attached. Again, I'm just focusing on the screen right now. So here's ship 34 in a super long fire on the left hand side of your screen. Birds. Gage is happy.
And here's 35. Again, the other one gets a 30-second head start because one of them's 30 seconds long, the other's a minute long. Up to this point, they look pretty darn close.
So far, now just give it a few more seconds.
So the single flash, and then that one had a double flash and more flames after. Wow.
Yes, something on the bottom end of ship 35 was definitely not happy.
That was a great comparison. Thank you, Carson, behind the scenes, for pulling that up.
Yeah, Carson is the MVP for pulling both Starlink and the ship 35 static fire together with all these rapid replays. Mega shout out to Carson tonight. He's been doing a great job.
Yes. There's been some amazing support going on behind the scenes here to make this all happen, but a huge shout out to Carson for all of these. This is wow. This is really good. So yeah, we will see what ends up happening with Ship 35. We'll hopefully be able to see during the rollback tomorrow. I'm sure they're probably going to put booties or covers on them where it may be harder to see, but if we can take a look underneath and see what we can do engine-wise for that, that would be amazing. And I'm sure it's safe to say that this will be a hot button topic on tomorrow's The Flame Trench right here on NSF, where we go over all of the latest news in a more lighter kind of fun way with all of you. And of course, This Week in Spaceflight will also have your back on all the latest space news. Let me just see here. I think at this point, we are getting pretty close to wrapping things up here. That was a lot that happened in a very short amount of time. Max, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, never a dull moment in the spaceflight world, especially here in the U.S. Just a typical Thursday night here. But honestly, I cannot imagine a better place to be right now, covering both super exciting events here and getting to share it with everyone else who is lucky enough and gracious enough to come hang out and watch along with us. So it's been a great night, and we will see you guys hopefully on Sunday morning for the next launch.
Oh yeah, did you remember? By the way, there was a Starlink launch too.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, there was one
ago. There was a Starlink launch.
Yeah, there was.
So shout out to Carson, shout out to D-Wise as well, who helped provide the field views for the Starlink side of things, and of course we have D's amazing slow-mo as well to happen on the way out. Also want to shout out Gage and Carson, who were both out in the field to help bring the views of the static fire side over in Starbase. So huge shout out to both field teams tonight. And if you want more of these replays and better close-up details of everything, keep an eye on all of the socials, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. We've got you covered on all of the latest information there. Carson, thank you as well for... Caesar was the one in the field. Carson was the one pushing the buttons, pulling the levers. Make sure I get all those right. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host. Don't forget, we will be back more tomorrow with This Week in Spaceflight, The Flame Trench, and of course, here is Dee's fantastic slow-mo of Falcon 9 to send us out. Have a good night, everybody.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside FTE off. Say again, FTE off. Off. It's orange! 145! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.